Jobs podcast show. I'm your host Fahad JobsWala, and I'm student and interview captain at Rehan School Online Academy. So I welcome to all of you with another amazing podcast with another amazing guest. But this guest is going to be very special because it is really interesting story behind that. I reached out to him. It's been almost maybe 6 to 7 months. He was a bit busy at that time, so that's why we didn't couldn't do that. But finally we're doing this, and I'm very excited for this to finally host Gregory Dwyer. So Gregory Dwyer, um, he's a former professional illusionist who spent over a decade amazing audiences with his sleight of hand and mentalism. But Greg's real magic happens off stage. As a communication strategist, ordained minister, speaker, and the host of the popular Greg Dwyer radio show and podcast. For more than 40 years, Greg has helped individuals and organizations harness the power of focus, persuasion, and subconscious alignment to transform their lives and careers. His insights have empowered thousands of to communicate with clarity, lead with purpose, and live with intention. Dwyer is not just about success; he is about significance. So, hi, Greg. How are you? And welcome to the show.
Good, good. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for being persistent. I think the key to focus is to have attention and have long attention span. And it sounds like you are one of them. You are successful.
Thank you so much, Greg. And it was you who were very kind to me. You were constantly replying me, because there are a lot of people where I was very persistent, and I'm still very persistent, because but they're not replying me. At least you replied me, and you gave a hope to me that one day I'm gonna do this with you, and it's now I finally got that day where I'm eventually doing this and successfully doing this. So, Greg, could you walk us through in your story? Could you tell us about your story? How did your career start and all that?
What do you want to know? How far back? What exactly do you want to know?
About your whole career as a journalist, as a podcast host, as a radio radio show host.
Well, I think the whole thing began when I was about 10 years old. So we're looking, this goes back to like the 70s, right? So we're talking about 1972. And I was at my grandparents' house. It was Christmas. It was cold here in Connecticut. And my uncle showed me a coin trick. So what he did is he held up a coin and he made it disappear. And I was only 10 years old. I had never seen a magician. I've never seen anything like this. And I was like, how in the world did this quarter disappear? Right. It was really amazing. So eventually he showed me. He showed me how the quarter trick worked, which was sleight of hand. And the next Christmas, a year later, when I was 11, I think I got a magic book that he and my Aunt Florence gave me. And it was a Blackstone magic book. And then one thing led to another. Another magic kit showed up. And before you know it, I was doing magic, little magic, not big magic. But I got all these little tiny tricks together and I brought them to school and I showed the kids. And I'm like 11, 12, 13 years old showing these kids magic tricks, and they wanted to know how I was doing it. So I said to them, well, the secret is told when the secret is sold. So what I did is I sold this thing and I sold that thing. And I don't know, I must have been an entrepreneur way back then when I was a kid, but I wouldn't tell the kids the secret. I'd say it's $10. If you give me $10, I'll give you the pack of cards. So then I started doing magic as a kid in school. I started doing shows for like $30 for 30 minutes, and one thing led to another. Then there was a period of my life when I walked away from it, And after I got away from it, I realized that sales and success and mindset is very much tied to how a person focuses. And a magician is an expert in getting people to not focus, but at the same time, if you can learn to focus and you can tighten your attention span, you can do great things. So I kind of brought it all together. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It is really great, and the way you explained your journey, because every child, I believe every teenager wants to become an independent person, especially in this era, because time is passing and our world is changing. Our world is now more like in 1990s. Some people still are living in 1990s, but we are now in 2025, and our teenagers do, you know they want luxury life, they want to become independent. So you had
Hmm.
that wish in your childhood, and you did that, like performing magic tricks and in the front of your colleagues and in the front of students in your school. So Greg, you've really like appreciated me when I being very consistent, persistent and consistent both with you. So do you have any story like that where was you persistent with any work which you want?
Persistent is the key. You have to be persistent. And, I'm a salesperson. I do speaking right now. I have a website called gregdwyer.com. And I go around to different organizations and I talk about focus with salespeople, business people. And just like you're 15 years old. I'm a little older than you. And I still get people that don't call me back. I still get people who don't respond back to me. And sometimes I'll say, well, so and so isn't calling me or so and so isn't responding to my emails, but I like the fact that you were persistent, and that attitude is also my attitude, and that's probably the reason why I decided to do this podcast with you and for you. But just the other day, there was a gentleman by the name of Paul. We spoke on the phone. We had a great connection, great rapport. And then about a week or so after that, we talked again. And then he ghosted me. He just kind of disappeared. He didn't answer my emails. He didn't open my emails. He didn't return my phone calls. His secretary screened the call. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, I have his attention and I have his interest, but I don't have his desire, because I teach this thing called ADAC: attention, interest, desire, action, and commitment, as far as the sales cycle. So just the other day, yesterday, I just said, well, I got nothing to lose. I got nothing to lose. I'm just going to be persistent. So I called him again. I says, hey, Paul, it's Greg. He goes, I want to apologize. I have another office. I've been so busy. I've been meaning to get back in touch with you. Let's get together for a cup of coffee this week. There it is. So you never know, you never know, you never know. So I like to do mind reading. I like to figure out what's in people's minds, but in reality, you never know until you ask. The worst that could happen is they say, please don't call me again, or this looks great, but I'm not interested. So persistence is the key in sales and also in business and also in life. And you know that.
Exactly, Greg. It really was a wonderful story, related to that Paul. I would say persistency, consistency, they both are really important as well in our life, as we have other things, which we consider as an important thing. So, and I just try to be persistent with other, and I still like reach out to uh, many people whom I reach out to them for the podcast. Hopefully, they will get back to me. So, in your episode, The Power of Focus with Dogo Brian, you're discussing enhancing focus through hypnosis and NLP. Can you elaborate on how these techniques can be applied in everyday life?
Yes. Most people, when they hear the word hypnosis, they think, oh no, this is evil. Or people will say, this isn't real. But in reality, most of us go in and out of trance all day long, like daydreaming, or, you're driving a car, or you're looking out the window in school and your mind is somewhere else. So we kind of fall into a hypnotic state in and out throughout the day. What I have found is people who are really successful, they are putting themselves in a positive trance for what they want. Now, people who are avoiding their life, or people who are not using the hypnotic state to their advantage, they might be at work or at school and they're thinking about, I don't want to be here. I wish I was on the beach, or I wish I was on vacation, or I wish I was swimming. Successful people who are aligned with their life purpose, they use hypnosis to put themselves in a powerful state to do the work that they need to do. Like, I'm in sales, right? So I make sales calls, I send emails, I get booked as a speaker. And there are some days I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, especially when I wake up in the morning, I say to myself, all right, I'm not really sure I want to make phone calls today, but I'm in a certain state of mind. I just woke up out of bed. I'm in an alpha state. I really am not thinking about making phone calls to, people all over the world. But then I realize that the secret to doing something is to get yourself in that mode, or that mood, or that state of mind. And that's not hard to do. You just have to recognize that you may not be in that state right now. At 9 o'clock in the morning, when I wake up without an alarm clock, I might say, I don't know if I really want to make phone calls at 10 or 11. But I know that all I have to do is to put myself in that state, that feeling, that emotion, that excitement to make phone calls, and then it happens. And then usually what happens is it becomes a habit. So what I talk about in my lecture, The Magic of Focus, is that successful people are able to make focus a habit so that their success is automatic, so they don't have to think about it. It's becomes who they are. Does that make sense?
It does make a lot of sense. It is all about putting yourself in this certain in the certain position, in the certain state of mind. The way you, and I would say the meditation is the best thing for this. Like, if
Yes.
we do meditation,
Yes.
we automatically get into into the that position, and we are automatically saying that now I wanna do. We weren't ready for that, but after doing that, so it is all about putting yourself in a certain mindset, which is really important before you are gonna do that. So you
Right.
emphasized aligning the conscious and subconscious mind for success. What practical steps do you recommend for achieving this alignment?
Well, that's $1 million question, and people pay me a lot of money to tell them that. But and I will tell you. Let's just back up just a little bit. So the first thing I tell people is, number one, the conscious mind is easily distracted. So it's easy today with social media and with everything that's going on in our phones and in the world today. There's just too much information. So when I give my lecture, The Magic of Focus, I tell people, listen, it's not hard to get distracted. The conscious mind easily is distracted. That's a problem. And I demonstrate that in my lecture. The second thing I teach people is that the unconscious mind, or the subconscious mind, is set in its ways through programs and conditioning from childhood. When we didn't guard our conscious mind, it just kind of seeped in. So these two elements, this is what hinders focus, attention, productivity, and results. Because people are all over the place, number one. And number two, they're running patterns that they're not even aware of. So, I'll spend a half an hour in my lecture just setting that up and driving those 2 points home. But the key to all of this is alignment, is to be able to align the conscious with the unconscious mind. And I will tell you, it's not a microwave effect. It does take time. It's more like a crock pot. It has to simmer over time. The best illustration I can think of, if you take a glass of milk, a big glass of milk, and you have this milk in here, and then you take maybe chocolate or strawberry syrup and you drop a drop into the milk, one drop, you won't notice a difference. You'll say, well, I tried it, nothing happened. Well, I say, okay, I get it. But then if you drop another drop of Hershey's chocolate into the white milk, you might not see it again. But if you keep on doing it over and over again over a period of time, eventually that milk is going to turn brown because of the chocolate in it, right? So, what we're talking about is conditioning. What we're talking about is reprogramming the mind. And it doesn't happen automatically overnight. Now, it does happen automatically, it's just that it doesn't happen quickly. It takes 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, maybe 6 months to reprogram, or maybe even a year to reprogram a person's mind. Does that make sense so far?
It does make a lot of sense, Greg, and I didn't know it. It is $1 million question, but it was really helpful. Um, like it is all about. There's a sad, like drops makes a river or drops make a complete ocean, such kind of thing.
Yes.
And the thing you've explained is just as similar with that. Like it is all about putting your efforts in a shape of a drop, into something, and it really, and at a time comes when it becomes a huge ocean of your success, and so it was really wonderful. So Greg, there's another sag about making a habit, of forming a habit, that it takes 20 days or something when it comes to form a habit. So is that correct?
I think it takes more. Now, my mentor, his name was Anthony Gailey. He just died in 2025. He was a sweet person. He was a hypnotist. He was also a speaker. He spoke about the subconscious aspect of business. And he wrote a book about this. And he said it takes more than 20 days. It's more like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So I don't think 20 days is enough. Now, this is where most dabblers give up, right? So had you given up and only reached out to me for once or twice, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But you kept on pursuing and kept on doing it. Most sales are made after the ninth time, the 10th time, the 12th time. Most salespeople quit. And unfortunately, most people quit when they want to try, and the word is try, to reprogram their mind. They'll say, well, I tried it for a day and it didn't work. I tried it for a week and it didn't work. I tried it for 3 weeks and I tried it for 20 days and it didn't work. Well, if it really means something to you, like investing, like you want to be wealthy as a millionaire in the stock market, it doesn't happen the first year. It might not even happen the second year. You got to keep on doing it over and over again. It's the same thing with reprogramming the mind so that you do create these habits. So, yes, it takes longer than 20 days.
Wonderful. Then it is a kind of misconception, and it is all about like putting yourself as, I'm just repeating your your answer. It is all about putting yourself in a certain mindset, like if you have a mindset, then that I will be able to do that, and my habit will be formed in 20 days, so that is not going to work to me, but if you have a mindset that you're gonna build this habit, and not you're not counting your days, you're just only focusing on the habit, that I want this habit to be formed, to be built, so then it is going to be work. We don't have to count days, We just have to work on the goal which we have. So in your
Yes.
interview on the magic of communication, you share secrets to effective communication. What are the key elements that make communication truly impactful?
I started with the magic of communication back about 8 or 9 years ago. That's where I started my career as a speaker. I've left that. I've switched it to this concept of focus, which is to me more hard hitting as far as helping people, right? Because most people today are not focused. But when it comes to communication, I would say the number one secret is to be able to build rapport with people. And what I mean by rapport is that people like you and they trust you. So if they don't like you or if they don't trust you, they're not going to follow you. They're not going to listen to you. Now, it's impossible to get everybody to like you, but there are ways with NLP and with communication styles to be able to enter into a person's world and find something that you have that is common. Just today, before we got on this, I was on the phone with a woman and she told me that she just got back from vacation, which I already knew. I called the office last week and I knew she was on vacation. So I mentioned, I says, I did call last week, but you were away. And she goes, yeah, I was on vacation, which I knew. I already knew it. And I said, hey, where did you go? And she said, oh, Florida. I says, oh, I have family that lives in Florida. And I mentioned the places and we talked about that. And then she says, I like Florida, but I wouldn't want to live there. And I said, I feel the same way. I says, I like New York. I like Connecticut. I like Massachusetts, Vermont. I don't think I could live in Florida. So, it's just small talk, but you want to be able to find something that you have in common with some people. You don't want to be controversial. If you want to lead somebody, you want to figure out what motivates them. And the only way to do that, the only way is if they like you. They have to like you and they have to trust you. Most people are not going to do business unless they like and trust you. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense, because I also used to watch videos related to communication, because communication is a topic which I would say an endless topic. The topic which doesn't have an end. The more we learn this topic, the more we become expert in it. But nobody can be perfect in this topic, especially in this. Although nobody can be perfect in this world, in anything, but at
Right.
least in this topic. So, like, the the thing which we are talking about, like, the first, we have to make the person like ourselves. So, are you referring to the ethics or empathy?
Yes. I mean, empathy is important. Now, Tony Robbins, I actually used to work with him and around him pretty closely. He would make a joke and he would say, as long as you're sincere, you can be successful, and as long as you can figure out how to fake sincerity, you'll be fine. And it was a joke. However, I really believe that empathy, being able to understand a person's dilemma, right? Because let's face it, in the world today, you were talking about how people want to be independent. The secret to being independent is to help people. It really is. It's to help people with the problem that they have. So when I first started out, I thought my business was all about me. I thought it was about my subject. I thought it was about my knowledge. I thought it was about, understanding what I knew. And then over the years, what I realized is people don't hire speakers, they hire consultants who can solve a problem. And the only way you can solve a problem is that you care about people. Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey? Does that ring a bell? Have you come across any of Joseph Campbell's work?
No, not Joseph's, but some other people.
Well, Joseph Campbell talked about the hero's journey. where the hero wants something. Maybe he wants to be famous, or he wants to be significant, or he wants to change the world. And then usually what happens is the rug gets pulled out from under him and he hits bottom, and it's a terrible situation. It's like the phoenix. And then out of that comes a person that has been transformed. And then they go back and they speak to the people that they know about what they've learned in the process. It requires apathy, or empathy, not apathy. Empathy. Apathy is you don't care. Empathy is that you do care. And I don't think you can fake it. I think you really have to be sincere. And I think people know if you're just doing it for yourself, or you're doing it for your own bank account, or you're doing it for your own glory. People can smell that. They can sense that. But if you really step outside of yourself and say, look, I think I can help you. Let's see if we can work together. I think that's the magic. That's the real magic.
Exactly, Greg. That what it is all about. And magic happens when you are persistent. Again, that quote or whatever it is that comes. It is all about being persistent, and it is all about putting your mindset in a certain position that if it is like if it doesn't seems like it is going, but it happens, you know. So it is all about that. So during your conversation with Tal Fagan, you explored battling self-doubt. What strategies do you find most effective in quieting the inner critic?
I didn't hear the last part of the question. What is most effective to canceling your critic, your inner critic?
Yeah,
Okay. I think this is from my NLP world, right? Because I studied NLP for the last 15 years or so, maybe even more. Is you realize that we don't have a grasp of reality. Like, I see the world through my lenses, my filters. You see the world through where you live. And even if people live in the same place, we don't live in the same world. We don't even focus on the same world. We focus on the world that we focus on. It's the world that we have. If we think the world is terrible, the world is terrible. If we think the world is great, the world is great. It all depends on how you focus. So we have a tendency, and I learned this from the world of NLP, we have a tendency to distort and to delete and to generalize information. Someone might say, I'll see you at 10 o'clock, and they don't show up. And we think, oh, they must have been in an accident, or they must have died, or they must have been ghosting me. And then you find out that they overslept, right? So I do this, you do this, we all do this. We're not the all-seeing eye. There's something bigger than us that sees all. I'm not him. I don't see all. I tend to delete information, distort information, and generalize. So if I have an inner critic that's saying I'm not good enough, or I could never do this, I just have to realize that it's probably not true. Other people will say differently. It's like an opinion. And once you realize that reality is plastic, or reality is subjective, then you can mold reality any way you want. And that's the true alchemist. The true alchemist is able to take hay and turn it to gold, or take, hay and turn it to silver, because their perception of what's happening is not limited. They have a growth mindset, and it's a different way of approaching it. So I guess to answer your question really simply is that if you want to cancel the inner critic, you just can't take the inner critic seriously, because you've been wrong before.
it is the best way to describe, about quitting the inner critic, and that is really awesome. So thank you so much, Gregory Dwyer, for giving me your precious and valuable time for this podcast. And I'm still thinking about this, that I finally done it. And because I've just done it because I was persistent with Mr. Gregory Dwyer, and Mr. Gregory Dwyer was kind enough, and is still kind enough to give his time to me. So it is all about give and take, and we have to change our point of view, as the last answer of Greg was about how we see this world. If someone is saying this world like it is a terrible, it is a haunted place, it is a people are scammers here. So it is, and if we see it is a beautiful place, then it is a beautiful place. So thank you so much again. Thank you so much, Gregory, for your time, and thank you so much, viewers and listeners, for watching and listening to this podcast. Inshallah, meet you soon with an amazing podcast with an amazing guest.